Hi everyone, welcome to my video on how to paint a lake scene with watercolor. If you're new here, my name is Emily Winslow and I love to spread the joy of watercolor to others. Now, if this is your first time painting with watercolor, I'd recommend going to take my previous video on the basics of watercolor. That will really help you through this tutorial. So today I'm going to walk you step by step on how to paint a lake scene, and my hope is that you have fun with this tutorial and end up having a beautiful new piece of art for your home. Let's go ahead and grab our paintbrushes and get started. Let's go ahead and start with what we're going to be using today. So I already have my two paints on my palette, and I love to get these Master Touch tubes from Hobby Lobby. You can also get this Praying Oval brand from Amazon, and I think this is a great starter kit. I have it linked in my description, so you can go check that out. For the brushes, I'm going to be using two main ones, and they are size 12 and 8. You can use whatever brand you like the best, and I do have some linked in my description as well. For the paper, I'm using a size 6x8 piece of watercolor paper, and then I'm taping it down with painter's tape, which you can grab from Lowe's or Amazon as well. Let's go ahead and get to sketching. So with this lake scene, I want to have a big sky with it, so I'm going to put the horizon line right about in the middle or maybe a little bit below. And then I want to have a little grassy area at the horizon line, so I'm going to add another line, maybe a ½ inch below that, and then maybe extend that even lower over here. Go ahead and bring that to the end. Okay, and then I think I want to have a bit of greenery or maybe flowers up at the bottom, so I'm going to add some flowers. Now, they don't have to be perfect. I used to get caught up when I was doing my paintings and making sure the sketch was perfect, and it really does not need to be. We're not going to see the pencil lines too much through the painting, so don't worry about perfecting this part. And with the flowers, I mean, I'm really just painting blobs here, so just circles and ovals. We can perfect the flowers later when we're actually doing the painting part. And I'm also going to want to put some little grassy areas, so I'm just adding lines, maybe some little weeds around. And I kind of want the middle to be a little lower, so I'm going to put some more flowers higher on the edges here. Now for the last part of the sketch, we're going to do a tree line. So I'm going to just add what looks like a little bush back here. Maybe make it lower towards the middle. You don't want it to be too perfect here, since trees are kind of uneven, so I'm kind of going up and down with my line here. I'm going to make a few trees that are like kind of really go above the others. Maybe one over here. I think I am happy with how this sketch looks, so let's move on to painting. I'm going to take my size 12 brush, and we are going to start with the wet on wet technique. So that means I'm going to dip my brush in the water. I'm going to go all over the paper with just my water. Now I'm going to go in with a blue towards the top. So I'm going to mix blue with some white, make a nice light blue, and I'm going to go all over the top. See how when we have the page wet, it just kind of blends nicely already. So I'm going to take some darker blue and go up at the top corners. I love when the edges kind of have a darker color to it, because when you peel off the tape, it kind of just leaves an even more stark line. So I love to dot the edge of the tape with a darker color. Now I'm going to take some warmer colors and go into the middle and the bottom. So I'm going to mix some yellow and pink, yellow and this peach color. And let's go ahead and put that in. I'm just putting that more towards the bottom here. And it's okay if you paint over your tree line, because the colors that we're going to be putting in the trees are going to go over these lighter colors. So we won't need to worry about avoiding our pencil lines here. I'm going to add some more red colors around the clouds. If you need to lighten some colors, just add more water. Something I love to help define clouds is by putting like a purplish color towards the bottom, and it helps make them stand out a bit. And you don't have to be perfect with the sky. You can just put clouds where you want them. If you need to take paint away, you can just get your brush wet and dab and kind of pull away the paint with the water. And to get the water even more taken away, you can even use a paper towel to dab at that. I do love watercolor, but one thing that I do find hard is to take away paint sometimes, especially when you, if it's dried already. You can take away a little bit of it, but it is harder to take away when it's dry. Okay, I think I'm happy with how the sky looks. Now we're going to do something very similar with the water down here. We are going to make a reflection. So again, I'm going to use the wet on wet technique and get the whole area wet with my water. Now let's go in with our blue again. Grab that same color, blue and white. And at this time we're going to go to the bottom of the page and just go up with the blue. Now I'm avoiding the flowers that I drew earlier, so it's okay if you get on some of them. So I'm going to go in with my darker color and just go towards the bottom of the page. And if your page is starting to dry up a bit, you can just add a little bit more water. So I'm going to go ahead and go in with my warmer colors now. That pink, I'm going to put that towards the grass area. And then we're going to go in with our red. And got that in. So we're trying to line up the reflection. So wherever your clouds were, kind of try to line that up, but it doesn't need to be perfect. I think that's what I used to struggle with a lot with watercolor, was I was trying so hard to make things perfect, but by the time I was done working with it, the water dried. And watercolor is a medium that can be a little bit hard to work with because it does dry fast, but I think it's also such a beautiful medium because it ends up such a well-blended painting at the end. That's why I love it. Now I'm gonna go to the flowers, and I think I want to keep them a light color. So with like white or any light colors, basically what you're going to do is take the white and blend it with another color. So I'm going to make it like a kind of a very light purple, and I'm just going to go kind of around the petals. There are different ways to do white flowers, and they're a little bit tricky, but this is how I do it. So there is I've seen, I don't use this a lot, but there is masking fluid that you can use to help kind of leave an area white, and then you can rub it off. I do have that linked on my Amazon, and I've used it a few times, but I actually really like the look of when flowers are like blended with the grass paint. You'll see what I mean when we when we paint the grass area, but I think it just kind of makes it look a little bit more natural. And so right now we just kind of wanted to add like an off-white area to kind of go in circles around the flowers. So we're gonna leave that right now and go back later. So with the grass, let's mix up a really light green, and I'm just gonna start dabbing that at the bottom edge of the paper here. Again, kind of going around those flowers a bit. So we want to keep it light, and then we're gonna end up going over this green with a darker shade of green to add those little grass strands. So with watercolor, I usually like to start out light and then go over with darker tones. I find it easier to do that. I know with other paint mediums, you can, sometimes with acrylic, you start out dark and then you add those light tones. I think it's the opposite here with watercolor. Okay, and then I'm also gonna kind of add those like little strokes of grass, maybe some little weeds up here. Okay, now let's go in with a darker tone of green, and I'm actually going to switch to my smaller brush here. Maybe a brown and red. And I just don't really look where my brush is going, and I kind of just mix colors until I like what I see. I know that sometimes isn't the most helpful tip for you, but you know what? I think honestly, never mind, I'm taking that back. I think it's a good tip because you know what? You don't have this formula for the colors. You can just mix until you like what you see, and I think that makes your art unique when you have your own color palette. So I think that's a great way to practice watercolor, honestly, is just like mixing colors and finding out what you like. Because with my paintings, I kind of feel like I have like this certain palette that I go for, more like earthy tones and neutral colors, and that's just what I like when I mix colors. I know some people like more brighter colors for their paintings, and that really just makes their paintings unique to them. So go with whatever you prefer. Now when we're doing these darker shades here, I'm just not wanting to go over the whole thing because I don't want to cover all the light. I'm just making some grass strokes where I want and leaving some areas lighter. I'm going to go in between the flowers a little bit here, starting to define them a little bit. And a good way to add some dimension to your paintings is for things to be smaller in the back and bigger in the front. So I'm going to add, these like big ones in the front, I'm going to kind of leave them as big blobs for now, and then in the back, we're gonna have smaller flowers. So I'm kind of making sure that the front flowers are left big, whereas the smaller ones in the back have more green around them. When it dries a bit, we're gonna add some more dark colors and more flower definition around the flowers. I'm gonna move on to this green grass area. So I'm gonna, again, have a light green to start, and we're gonna just go across the area. Take your brush and go all the way across. And I kind of want to add different tones in here, so I see I'm adding a bit more of a warmer green over here, And what we're gonna do next, I think, really helps define the area. I'm gonna take a darker color and go at the bottom line here. It adds good depth to it when you add darker lines at the edges. And I'm gonna actually add, I do use blue in my shadows a lot. So I'm gonna do blue. And I'm just making upward strokes, kind of like grasses here. And I'm gonna do the same thing for this part of the grass as well. Maybe make it a little uneven, so some parts are a little bit higher and some are lower. I think that's really what elevates paintings, is when they're not perfect straight lines. Free lines in real life aren't always completely straight. You want them to be uneven. Okay, I'm happy with how the grass area looks. Now, what are we missing here is a little shadow under the grass. So I'm going to mix a purplish color, so blue and red. And I'm gonna just go under grass area a bit. And this is an important step in just making it the sun look like it's shining towards the lake. I think sometimes, like, there's times when I forget to put a shadow and I'm just like, wow, why does this painting look so weird? And it's because I didn't have certain shadow where it should be. So if you're ever wondering maybe what's missing, could be a shadow. Front part of it, and adding more of a blue and to darken up the shadow. Okay, I'm happy with how that looks. So I'm going to move on to the tree line back here, but we're going to mix up a light green and just go over all of the tree area. So again, starting light here, and we're going to go in with our darker tones once we have it all covered. Again, and there's certain parts where I just want to leave really light. So like towards this middle here, where there might be a sun shining through, I'm just going to keep like really light for now. Just to go really light, and remember, if we want to lighten it up, you can add more water to your paint. You can go darken up at the edge over here. We have some fir trees poking up, so I'm going to add those lines. Here, I'm going to actually add a bit of yellow in there, a little bit of pink. A little bit too much there. Okay, you just take your water and lift up the paint if you put too much, and that's okay. Now, I'm gonna go in with darker green. So we're gonna mix the green and some brown and maybe a little bit of black. And I'm gonna go towards the bottom here. See how that adds a lot of depth when we put the darker green towards the bottom. And I'm gonna go upwards with the green on. I'm gonna pick one side of the tree to have that darker green and leave the other side light. And then I'm gonna go in after I finish up here. I'm gonna go in with more of a blue tone of a green and add that on the outsides of the trees as well. I think having like multiple tones of colors in the painting really just adds to it. I think when you keep using the same like shade of green for everything, it can kind of make it look a little flat in the end. So you're gonna wanna go in with a different tone here. So let's mix up like blue and add that in. I think that definitely helped us add some color to this painting. I think there's always times, and I don't, when you're working on watercolor paintings, always go through to the end. I think every painting just has like this ugly stage and you just want to give up your painting because you don't see where it's going, but just continue to the end because there's always, I feel like it always works out in the end. And there's just very rare times where I went through and finished paintings and was unhappy with it still, but they're just, especially starting watercolor, I just like have thrown away so many paintings, and that's okay. If there's any areas where you think you may have gone in a little bit dark, you can, take that paint off. Definitely have a few areas that I'm seeing here. Oops. Now I took off too much paint. There we go. So for this last part, I'm just gonna take like a purplish pink shade here. And I'm just gonna start kind of making a little bit of outlines of the flowers to help define them a little bit more. And I'm just gonna really concentrate on the bigger ones that are in the front. So I'm gonna, add paint maybe at the bottom of it, make a little bit of a petal shape here. And the last thing I want to do is kind of just add maybe some more like wildflower or greenery around here. So I'm just going to take some like yellow and I'm going to go like up and around with the yellow. And I kind of want these to just look like wildflowers or weeds. So I'm just going to make little like dotted motions here. I'm going to go in with a darker, maybe red color. Gonna go around. I'm gonna add those also kind of like in the grass area too. Maybe take a bit of red. Do the same thing here. I think just adding different color flowers kind of just makes it look a little bit more natural. Maybe add more to one side than the other. I think something that I've kind of gone wrong with a painting before is kind of making it too even. In nature, it's not always completely even, so you want it to, look a little unbalanced. Okay, I am happy with how our painting looks. If you have any other touch-ups you wanted to do, go ahead and make them, but this is my favorite part of the painting is tearing off the tape. So let's go ahead and do that. And here's our nice lake painting. I hope you enjoyed painting with me today. I hope you all enjoyed this tutorial today and learned something new. Go ahead and let me know in the comments below what you want to learn how to paint next. I'd love if you like this video and subscribe to my channel. And as always, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Watercolor with Emily. Until we paint again next time.